Asante often found solace in the small garden her mother had lovingly cultivated. The vibrant colors of the flowers were a stark contrast to the growing tumult in her life, a sanctuary where the whispers of the petals danced in the breeze. Each morning, the sun would stretch its golden fingers across the horizon, illuminating the dew-kissed leaves. But with every passing day, Asante felt an unsettling shift. The laughter that once filled their home was slowly replaced by harsh words and a coldness that seeped into even the strongest stones. Her stepmother's smile had become a mask, a veneer hiding unyielding pragmatism. While her mother toiled in the fields with gentle hands that cradled every seed, her stepmother calculated each moment to her advantage. Asante could sense the tightening noose around her mother as her stepmother's whispers grew louder, filled with the promise of power, a power that thrived on the suffering of others. She remembered the time her stepmother had gleefully discarded a handful of bitter herbs, claiming they had little value compared to the gold she could barter for their land. This viciousness spilled into their family life, spilling over the edges of meals that had once been filled with joy. The unease crept into every facet of Asante's existence. Her schoolwork suffered, her laughter stilled, and the freedom she once relished in exploring the wildflower-laden hills became a distant memory. She often returned home to find her mother, locked in silent tears, her eyes reflecting a pain Asante could not comprehend. Each night, she would curl up next to her mother, tenderly wiping away the rivulets of sorrow that traced her cheek, wishing she could shield her from the cruelty surrounding them. But what could a child do against such forces? It felt as if they were locked within a tower, the drawbridge drawn, with no hope of rescue. As the dark days dragged on, whispers of clandestine sales began to hover in the corners of the village. Asante overheard the tavern gossip, men discussing the worth of a young girl, her beauty, intelligence, and spirit twisting into something of a commodity in her stepmother's eyes. The very thought sent shivers down her spine, an icy reminder of the fragile threads that held her life together, fraying at the edges. With every flicker of the oil lamp that illuminated their home, Asante's heart raced with the specter of what could come next, taunting her with visions of abandonment and betrayal. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, draping the village in shades of fire, Asante found herself outside once more. She sought refuge among the high grass, the world fading into a whisper of the past. It was there, cradled by the earth. She contemplated the weight of her reality and the aching desire to forge a different path, to pry free from the invisible chains that bound her. Little did she know, as she peered into the horizon, that sometimes unforeseen choices could alter the very fabric of one's destiny. As the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows stretched across the landscape, draping the world in an eerie twilight. The air, chilled by the encroaching night, sent a shiver down the spine of the stepmother as she paced the edge of the dense woods. With each step, her heart raced in unison with her quickening breaths, contemplating the grave paths she had chosen to tread. The stranger emerged from the gathering dusk, his figure cloaked in darkness that seemed to absorb the fading light. His presence was both magnetic and grotesque, an enigma wrapped in the whisper of secrets. His eyes glinted, ablaze with a feral intensity that made the stepmother's pulse quicken. It was an unnatural radiance, as if they were flames hungry for something more than just the night. She stood still, her anxious thoughts gripping at her resolve, while the stranger observed her with a hunger that sent icy tendrils of foreboding coursing through her veins. "Do you seek power?" His voice was smooth, yet it held a sinister undertone that pricked at the back of her mind. She swallowed hard, contemplating the temptation that lay before her. What price would she pay for dominion over her life, the life she felt slipping between her fingers like sand? "I seek what is owed to me," she retorted, a spurt of defiance coloring her words. The stranger's laughter, soft and chilling, echoed like a distant storm. "Then let us make a pact, shall we?" He leaned closer, the air around them thickening with the weight of unspoken promises. "In exchange for a life, you shall receive gold beyond your wildest dreams. No longer will you be tethered to the whims of fate. Instead, you will wield the power to reshape your destiny." As the intoxicating promise hung in the air, the stepmother's thoughts spiraled into a dark abyss. A life for wealth, a life that belonged to Asante. The girl, with her innocent laughter and gentle spirit, was oblivious to the sinister threads being woven behind her back. In soft rays of fading sunlight, Asante remained by the riverbank, weaving delicate flowers into her ebony hair, the simple act a balm to her youthful heart. The stepmother remembered how joyously Asante danced, her laughter echoing in the twilight, a melody she could not afford to sacrifice lightly. Yet, the whispers of ambition coaxed her deeper into the shadows of avarice. "Does she suspect?" the stepmother asked, masking her unease with a belittling upset. The stranger chuckled, a low, chilling notes that reverberated against the backdrop of swaying trees. "Young things are rarely aware of the storms brewing around them, and you, dear woman, shall become the storm." The weight of decision pressed heavy on her chest. Her heart fluttered like a caged bird, torn between the urge to protect her daughter and the tantalizing allure of freedom from anguish. With each passing moment, the shadows deepened, and as the darkness closed in, so too did her choices. In her heart, a nerve quivered, but the lure of riches drowned the voice of reason, a reckless mantra beckoning her to seal the bargain that would forever alter the course of their lives. Asante sat quietly in the backseat of the car, her heart a storm of emotions as the landscape blurred past her window. The rhythmic thump of tires against asphalt felt like a countdown, each beat tugging her further away from the life she once knew. The driver, a stocky man with a stony expression, offered no comfort, instead focusing on the road as if he were merely a machine, devoid of any empathy. The sterile scent of the car engulfed her, mingling with her anxiety, leaving her feeling trapped in a bubble of isolation. Asante stole furtive glances at the passing scenery. The familiar sights of her neighborhood, tree-lined streets, the quaint houses of friends, the little park where she spent countless afternoons, began to slip behind the horizon. Each mile felt like a nail driven into her chest, reminder of everything she was leaving behind. Her stepmother's dismissive words echoed in her mind, sharp as daggers. "You are going to a new home." What did that even mean? Home was where laughter resonated, where her dreams took flight. This was not a new beginning. It felt like the end of everything. The stifling silence in the vehicle only deepened her unease. It was as if the world outside had conspired to mute her anguish, with trees standing as silent witnesses to her sorrow. She half expected to hear the comforting sound of her little brother's laughter, or feel the warmth of her father's reassuring presence. But none of that was within reach anymore. The memory of their last evening together loomed large. The laughter over dinner, the cozy warmth of their shared stories. Now it all felt like fragments from another life, one that had been cruelly snatched away. Suddenly, the car turned onto a road lined with unfamiliar trees, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Asante's stomach twisted, a primal warning that something was very wrong. She leaned forward, heart racing, and tried to catch the driver's eye in the rearview mirror. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely breaking the thick tension in the air. The driver remained impassive, offering no acknowledgement, as if her question had dissolved into the void. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, each passing second amplifying her fear. The car slowed, and then finally came to a stop. Exiting the vehicle was like stepping into a nightmare she had no way of escaping. The new house loomed before her, dark and unwelcoming, its windows like hollow eyes that seemed to stare back. Her stepmother got out first, an enigmatic smile plastered on her face, but it didn't reach her eyes, which still held that unsettling chill. Asante took a deep breath, grappling with the tension in her chest. She followed her stepmother inside, the threshold of her new existence looming ahead. Each step felt heavy, as if the weight of her belongings was not just in the bag she carried, but also in the darkest corners of her heart, where hope began to flicker dangerously low. The door creaked as it closed behind her, sealing off the life she had known and ushering her into a world filled with shadows and unanswered questions. Asante explored the mansion with a tentative curiosity, each room revealing remnants of Malik's existence. The vast halls were adorned with paintings that told stories she longed to unravel. She found beauty in the swaths of color, but her heart remained heavy, a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding her. There was an elegance to the place, yet it felt like a gilded cage, where she often caught herself glancing for the exit, a habit born of her chaotic past. Malik, for all his kindness, had an air of mystery that thickened the atmosphere around them. His silences could be heavy, laden with thoughts he did not share. At times he seemed almost too caring, attending to her needs with an intensity that left her unsettled, as if he were scanning her for vulnerabilities. In these moments, she felt like a bird fluttering against a window, both drawn to the unknown and desperate for escape. Their conversations danced around unspoken truths, glancing off the edges of personal stories without truly delving in. Asante found herself watching him closely, searching for hints of the man behind the facade. There were fleeting moments when Malik would lower his guard, revealing a flicker of pain in his eyes, a fracture in his otherwise composed exterior. She felt an unexplainable kinship to him, a bond forged from shared suffering and unspoken understanding. One evening, she caught him staring out the grand window that overlooked the sprawling gardens, the golden light casting shadows across his face. His expression was remote, replete with a sense of yearning that made her chest tighten. Asante hesitated before approaching him, the air thick with uncertainty. "What do you see out there?" she ventured, breaking the silence that enveloped them like a shroud. Malik turned to her, his dark eyes searching hers for a moment before he answered. "I see the freedom I once had, the choices that I made, or didn't make, that brought me here. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a ghost living in a memory of my past." His voice was low, almost lost in the rustling of leaves outside. In that instant, Asante sensed the weight of his history pressing down on him, aligning with her own sense of confinement. Days passed, and each interaction deepened the already intricate tapestry of their lives, woven together by circumstance. They often found themselves lost in the same broken memories, sharing fragments of who they were, even as it grew clearer that their stories were not merely divergent, they were intertwined. Asante learned of Malik's battles with familial expectations and a childhood marred by neglect, while she, in turn, bared her soul about her tumultuous past, rooted in betrayal and heartache. The mansion, once a symbol of opulence, slowly transformed in her eyes. It became a sanctuary, a place where two wounded souls could begin to heal together, even if the process was fraught with hesitation. With every passing day, Asante felt herself tethered to Malik, their connection a twisted yet undeniable lifeline, frail yet vibrant amidst the chaos of their pasts. The line between captor and caregiver blurred, and in this shared space of vulnerability, they began to redefine the essence of care and connection. Asante often found herself lost in the swirling chaos of her thoughts, each one a dark wave threatening to pull her under. Yet, amidst the turmoil, she marveled at Malik. His interactions with the world were a tapestry of nuances, vibrant and unexpected. She noticed how he approached strangers. The same patience he held for their flaws he seemed to extend to her own vulnerabilities. Whether it was a soft smile for a child on the street or a small gesture to help an elderly neighbor, Malik's innate kindness blossomed where she least anticipated it. In quiet moments, they would sit together in the park, shadows stretching long with the setting sun. Asante felt a warmth wrap around her heart, a strange yet comforting presence. "What do you dream about, Malik?" she'd ask, curiosity guiding her voice. With an unexpected intensity, he would recall dreams not just of ambition, but of connection, a yearning to feel understood amid life's hustle. For the first time, Asante realized that her vulnerability was not an isolated island, but rather part of a larger ocean of experiences shared among humanity. "Sometimes I dream of flying," he confessed one afternoon when a light breeze danced through the leaves. "But not to escape, just to see the world from a different perspective." Asante felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. The metaphor resonated deeply, and she began to share her own dreams, frayed at the edges but still vibrant. She spoke of travel, adventure, and the longing for a life unfettered by fear and regret. In the tender exchange of stories, Asante could feel herself shifting, like the seasons turning. Each spoken word was a thread weaving them closer together, forming an intricate bond that neither could have anticipated. Their conversations became a refuge. In the stillness that enveloped them, Asante's laughter rang like a soft bell, echoing her liberating emotions. Malik, in turn, would share moments from his past, the courage it took to challenge his inner demons, and the realization that strength bloomed in the most unexpected places. She began to see how deeply he felt, and it encouraged her to explore her own emotions with reckless abandon. Malik's resilience was a mirror, reflecting her potential back at her, and slowly, she reclaimed fragments of the self she thought were forever lost. In the quiet of their gatherings, she felt the weight of judgment lift, replaced by an understanding rooted in their shared struggles. They were two souls navigating the complexities of existence, stitched together by their scars. With every story they unveiled, Asante discovered that resilience is not the absence of pain, but rather the ability to rise with grace in its aftermath. She had always been strong. She just needed Malik to help her see it. With each revelation, they forged a path toward healing, illuminating the darkness that had once felt so pervasive. As the days turned into weeks, they stood steadfast against the underlying chaos of their lives. Their friendship was a lantern guiding them through the murky uncertainties. And as spring blossomed into gold-hued summer days, Asante found herself nourished by the roots of this newfound companionship, alive with the potential of all they could become, together. Asante found herself sitting beside Malik on a weathered park bench, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting a warm glow around them. This was the moment they shared after weeks of hesitant friendship, where an unspoken understanding filled the spaces between their words. As the golden light danced on Malik's face, she noticed not just the shadows of uncertainty that lingered in his eyes, but also the flickers of resilience, like embers refusing to die out. "You know," Malik began, his voice a soft rumble reminiscent of distant thunder. "There were times when the world felt unbearably heavy on my shoulders. I'd look around and think, how did I end up here?" Asante leaned in, instinctively drawn to his story. There was a vulnerability in him that mirrored her own hidden struggles, a truth they both navigated silently. Malik began to weave the tales of his past with an eloquence that made the gravel crunching beneath them fade into the background. He spoke of the loss of his younger brother, abruptly taken from him by a reckless accident. The memory was raw, the wound still fresh even after years. "I remember sitting in the hospital, feeling like I was in a bubble, separated from the world around me. My family, We were broken, beyond anything a therapist's office could fix. His gaze turned distant, and Asante sensed the weight of grief pressing down on him, a heaviness that threatened to extinguish the flicker of light she saw within him. As Malik's story unfolded, Asante felt a profound connection developing between them. Their laughter echoed over shared memories, the odd things that had made them smile despite the shadows of sadness that hovered nearby. He recounted moments of deep sorrow, punctuated by unexpected joy, moments that had shaped him, that had taught him how to move forward, even when every part of him wanted to retreat into darkness. Sometimes, he continued, his voice catching slightly, the pain can feel like a shackle, binding you to the past. But there's also a weird sort of liberation when you accept it, when you realize how those experiences have shaped you. Asante felt a warmth spread in her chest. Here was Malik, wrestling with his ghosts yet finding a sense of purpose out of the wreckage. In that golden light, as their laughter mingled with the whispers of the breeze, Asante felt an awakening within her. She realized that her own story was not one of isolated triumphs or failures, but rather a tapestry woven with the threads of connection, suffering, and healing. Malik was no longer just a stranger. He was a reflection of her own journey. In this newfound understanding, Asante grasped that building connections often came from shared pain, from the willingness to break open and reveal the scars that told their stories. Together, they shared a silent vow, a newfound commitment to honor their past while navigating a future laden with promise. One where laughter could outshine sorrow, and where the scars of yesterday served as reminders of resilience and growth. Asante awoke each morning to the golden glow of dawn filtering through her window, a subtle reminder that a new day lay ahead. With every sunrise, there was a stirring in her soul, an awakening to the possibilities that awaited. Hope, once a fragile flicker, now burned steadily within her, fueled by her growing desire to reclaim her life. She often found herself reflecting on Malik's transformation, his determination a compass guiding her toward self-discovery. It was in these moments that she embraced the belief that she, too, could transcend the shadows of her past. Stepping out into the world each day was a deliberate act of defiance against the constraints that had long defined her. Asante began to take ownership of her journey, engaging in activities that ignited her passion. She immersed herself in literature, devouring books that spoke of dreams realized and voices unshackled. Through the pages, she traveled far beyond the limitations of her small town, envisioning a life colored by adventure and empowerment. Words transformed into her allies, each story whispering promises of what could be. In the warmth of her newfound freedom, Asante sought connections that inspired growth and love. She surrounded herself with individuals who uplifted her spirit, each conversation a thread weaving her story closer to her aspirations. Among them was Ria, a fiercely independent artist whose vivid canvases spoke volumes of resilience. Asante spent countless afternoons at Ria's studio, mesmerized by the way colors danced under brushstrokes, much like the possibilities teasing just out of reach. Ria's passion reminded Asante that art could also be an expression of one's fight, an ability to visually narrate pain and triumph. As the seasons shifted and flowers began to bloom, so did Asante's dreams. She envisioned herself traveling to places that resonated with her heart, the marketplaces bustling with life, the landscapes basking in sunlight, and the faces of people whose stories mirrored her own. Each day she made a small, intentional step toward these dreams. Whether it was learning to sketch under Ria's guidance or researching destinations that sparked her imaginations, she carefully aligned her actions with her desires. In the quiet moments of reflection, Asante would trace the lines of her past, acknowledging the scars, but refusing to let them define her. They were part of her mosaic, but not the entirety of it. As walls began to crumble within her, she discovered the courage to forge new paths illuminated by her own choices, unmarred by the decisions of others. It was a continuous process of shedding the remnants of her old self, leading her forward in a dance of liberation. Asante realized that while the echoes of her history were always present, she possessed the power to rewrite her narrative. With every step, every word spoken, and every dream chased, she solidified her resolve, ready to embrace the beautiful complexities of a life fully lived. With a heart brimming with hope, she understood that the essence of freedom lay not just in the absence of bondage, but in the fearless pursuit of one's true self. The afternoon sun streamed through the open windows of her once claustrophobic room, casting a warm glow on the walls adorned with sketches and vivid watercolor paintings, each one a testament to her evolving identity. The timid girl who once hid behind closed doors had begun to fill the empty spaces with color and hope, finding solace in her creative expression. With Malik's unwavering support, she had plunged headfirst into the world that had once felt so insurmountable, daring to chase the dreams that flickered just beyond her reach. Each outing was a mini-adventure, from visiting local galleries to joining art classes that buzzed with creativity and laughter. She was terrified at first, battling the familiar anxiety that whispered she was unworthy. But Malik had a way of silencing those nagging doubts. He would stand beside her, a steady presence, reminding her that vulnerability was not a weakness, but rather a step toward profound growth. "You belong here," he'd often say, his voice warm with encouragement. And with every interaction, she began believing it too. At the art studio, she discovered a community that thrived on individuality. There, amid splashes of paint and bursts of inspiration, she connected with fellow artists, each sharing their story, struggles, and triumphs. Their diversity ignited something within her, each narrative weaving a tapestry of resilience and creative energy that enveloped her like a comforting embrace. They became her tribe, helping her shatter the remnants of self-doubt that still lingered. With every brushstroke, she no longer felt like a prisoner of her past. Instead, she felt empowered to mold her future. In one crucial morning class, the instructor encouraged everyone to share their personal journeys relating to their artwork. Her heart raced as she stood to speak, an amalgamation of excitement and fear swelling inside her. "This," she gestured to her canvas, a riot of colors, "is a representation of my journey from darkness to light." The room fell silent, the weight of her words resonating deeply with her peers. She spoke of the days when fear held her captive and the liberation she found through art, her voice gaining strength and clarity with each passing moment. The applause that erupted felt like a warm wave washing over her, cementing her place within this vibrant community. Malik watched, pride emanating from him as if he were a part of her blossoming self. He saw each scar and bruise she bore, not as marks of a past filled with pain, but as badges of her profound resilience. Their shared laughter and tears became the foundation of a companionship that thrived in the face of challenges. As they navigated their days, the challenges she faced outside the mansion paled in comparison to the inner battles she had conquered. She thrived on those moments of adversity, finding strength in vulnerability and realizing the beauty in embracing change. Each experience built her character, replacing remnants of the timid girl with a fierce, unyielding spirit, ready to conquer the world, one vibrant canvas at a time.